Good evening. My name is Helen Anthony. I am the chair of the Committee on Finance for the Providence City Council. I'm calling to order our regular meeting on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024 at 5:34 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Here.
Councilor Underwood. Here. Councilwoman Gray,
Yeah.
Councilor Sanchez,
Here.
five present, no absent. You have a plan.
Thank you so much, and I would like to welcome our representative from the city solicitor's office, Ken Cheverini. Thank you very much. We've got our wonderful clerks, Donna Williamson and Warren Gutierrez. Thank you very much. And we also have attending tonight, Councilor Oscar Vargas. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a little unfinished business on item number 2, so I'm going to ask for a motion to take that out of order. May I have a motion?
Second.
The motion made by Council Gray, seconded by Councilor Sanchez. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Madam Clerk, would you please read on item number 2?
Item 2, resolution authorizing approval of the following option year contract awarded by the Board of Center and Supply in accordance with section 21-26B1 of the Code of Ordinances. Waste Management of Rhode Island, Inc. $9,542,385.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for coming. Please swear our witnesses.
Please raise your right hand. We swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
And please state your name to the record again.
Courtney Hopkins, Chief Operating Officer. Patricia Point, Day Director, DPW. And then I also noticed that we have Ed Passick from Waste Management again. Thank you, Ed, so much for coming again to attend this meeting.
My pleasure.
So where we left off last time, there were several of our committee members that were not here. We had worked through most of our questions. I know that Councilor Vargas had a few more questions he wanted to ask. And of course, if you have any questions without going through what we've already been through, I tried to communicate with you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Taylor, if you have anything, but we're going to keep it short because we've already had you here for a bit. And I appreciate you coming back. So with that, I'm going to start with any counselors, any committee members that might have questions, leftover questions, or even, you know, a couple of brief questions because you weren't here. Yes.
I got a couple. I'm just trying to follow, because I did watch the meeting. I know I wasn't here. I'm following up on Councilman Royce's comment about a fiscal note of us doing it in the future. Is there any way that we can look into that more than a 2-year, like to get it done before next year?
Before July.
Before, not this year, next year, July.
So what I can
Before we have to go through this again.
Before we put it out to bid, as
Yes.
part of the process of putting it out to bid, we will put together a fiscal note. as to
Just
what
to
that
see if we
would
can do it in-house.
Mhm.
Okay, awesome.
Yes, please.
And also, can we, I feel personally that we kind of dropped the ball and we're here again, because we talked about it a year ago, now we're here again. Can we maybe quarterly find out, obviously we all have issues with waste management, and that hasn't changed since last year. So can we maybe get like a quarterly report of how many trash things were missed, like, you know, obviously how many yard waste we missed, like, you know what I mean, like something, how many trash barrels are falling into the waste management and they're not letting us know. I know it's more work, but it's just,
We could put together, we put together data that we can share. And the last time we met, we committed to doing an RFI, which we did do, which revealed we didn't think we'd get competitive bidding if we did it right now. We also started active contract management meetings with the vendor, and we held them accountable to some fines for targets that they haven't met. So I would contend we're not exactly where we were a year ago. And we would be happy to put together a quarterly report to share with the council.
just to bring you back in again in front of the finance and maybe. Cause I don't know, I mean, I don't know anything, I don't know what my colleagues do about fines or what has been in the last year,
Well,
what we have fined.
I mean,
waste
I would
management.
suggest we put together a report that's shared with the Public Works Committee If they want to bring people in for a committee meeting, we can do that.
Yeah,
That is absolutely fine. And I'm sorry to follow up on that. 311 calls, that must be easy to tell who's coming in 311.
Yeah, I think our colleague from Waste Management shared some data in the last committee meeting, and we can continue, we can put that together in the quarterly.
And then it'd be up to us to make sure that we have quarterly meetings.
If you want them, maybe you'll look at the report and decide you don't need them.
Okay, I think that's great. So if we can have quarterly reports, then we can decide whether we need to meet that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, are you finished with yours?
That was actually my question, but it's good, it's on good.
You're good. Okay, we're gonna have, Councilor Vargas, what are your remaining questions?
But I would like to clarify, under this column, and the $95,000 and $300, right? Januaries and holiday trees. They talk about like 9 months and 0.45 months of service. Yes, to collect trees, they charge me $95,000
And yard waste.
in yard waste. Can you explain me what yard waste means for them?
It's when we let people put out the leaf bags in addition to their trash during the spring into summer into fall season. And that gets picked up with the trash and recycling. You know, you can buy the
Paper bag.
paper bags, thank you, that go out with your trash. That's an additional cost.
And that's all year round?
It's, I guess it's about 9.45 months of the 12 months. That's,
So some people on the east side had barrels that they actually, myself included,
Yeah.
instead of buying the bags. I have barrels that I fell for that. When they get those.
And these amounts,
Yes, please.
and these kind of money is included in the bulk items too?
includes the what?
Bulk?
Bulk
No.
items.
No,
Just yard waste and Christmas trees. Or holiday trees.
it's something that we can work on, it's quite high. For young ways, all year long. Something that we can talk to West Management, how we can.
We're not gonna renegotiate the terms of this extension. When we procure it again, we can look at the cost associated with yard waste. So I think that is too high.
There's no way to negotiate now, the policy will drop.
That's right.
So how we.
Yes, please.
But we getting fees back and forth from the dump. In Johnson, right? Every time it rains, they reject the load because it's wet.
Yeah.
Is anything that we can work with West Management, how we can avoid it or share the cost?
So certainly the idea of incentives and penalties can be revisited with a new contract when we re-procure them. And that would include wet trash. I'll tell you, it probably means that we will not be taking people's wet trash and we'll be leaving it behind. And people will have to manage what they do with it themselves. Wet recycling, you know, so we'll have to talk about the implications of that. But we can't do that in the context of this extension. It would have to be in the context of a new contract.
Chief, would you mind just telling us, for those of us who do not know, what happens with wet trash? when it
Wet
gets-
recycling gets rejected, which I also found talking. Please keep your recycling dry.
What?
Where our recycling goes. This is not a waste management problem.
No, no, sorry.
That's why in the last committee, I pointed out that a lot of our problems relate to the fact that all of our trash goes to one place that we are required by law to take it. We cannot try to take it somewhere else, right? So they have a monopoly, we have to take our trash and recycling there. If your recycling is wet, it gets rejected. They can't recycle wet items.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I was also shocked by that.
Okay, well, I think that's something
If you
that,
ever spend all the time with Sheila Normandy and she tells you about recycling, guaranteed you'll learn something that you didn't know because it's so complicated. And there are so many rules, and that is why a lot of our recycling gets rejected, unfortunately.
okay. All right, so that's obviously something we want to talk about in the future. I'm not sure what we can do about it, but,
Yeah.
okay. Or do you have any other questions?
Last one.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you please involve the council when the new negotiation with West Management or anybody who's going to take the bidding for the future, so we can give you ideas how to get a better source on a patch pad, you know? Because they just went up $1 million, $1 million is not around the corner. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna have Counselor Sanchez and then Counselor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Is the date of the yard waste pickup in the contract somewhere other than the 9 months?
They gave us options. We had, in fact, I just visited this, what's today, Tuesday, so maybe last Friday. Al Giuliano and I were looking at various options for yard waste, so we choose what that date, what those dates look like. So they're not specified.
How are we like communicated in that process? or-
That will go up on the city website. 311 will have it, and then we also do outreach about yard waste. We just let people know what the dates are.
Okay, yeah, my only comment on that is if possible to move it past what was it, December 15th?
Yeah.
This year?
What dates we picked?
Yeah.
I'm asking. Yes, we literally just had discussions, but we're gonna swear you in, Al. Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Please swear with the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. And please state your name for the record.
So,
Please,
so the yard waste program runs 37 weeks. And we were penciled in to start April 1st. And similar to last year, it would end the second week, the 13th, actually was Friday, the 13th of December. But the church and myself, we went over it, and because we had people putting it out later throughout December, we decided to start on the 15th of April. So instead of starting on the 1st, we're starting on the 15th of April, and that takes us right through Christmas week. And the last day of the yard waste pickup would be that week, the holiday Saturday, because it's delayed. So it's the 28th of December. It's going to run right through the whole month of December.
Thank you, yeah, I definitely support that,
Yeah.
because, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys got a bunch of complaints as
Yeah,
well.
we end up picking it up at highway, so it's a strain on us. So we just delayed it 2 weeks, and the 37 weeks run was right till the end of December.
Cool, and then I would just notate if like any future contract, if we could probably expand that even more a little bit, I think with climate change. Very, very real in our world right now, I think it's.
Yeah, waste management worked with us, it gave us whatever option we wanted to go with, and we talked to Eric. Not Ed, but Eric Richards, and he agreed, so that's that 37 weeks is gonna start a little later, but end a little later. It's hopefully solve a lot of the issues.
Thank you.
all right, Counselor Taylor.
Just following up on that, Al, I know that after December 28th, obviously Christmas is, and I get it now. So the yard waste and holiday trees are hooked into the same date.
No,
Holiday trees are separate.
the tree program doesn't start till like the first week of January, and that runs 3 weeks.
I think we may need to extend that as well, because I know there was a lot of Christmas trees that were still out
We
there.
only get 3 weeks for the contract. We'd have to start it later and.
Right, but my thing is if DPW's picking mostly them up now, then I think that should be crossed out. I am more people in environmental DPW will pick them up. Next contract, not now. not that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is the recycling. I'm sorry, I missed the last meeting. Trash cans, in other words, okay, so let's say all Thurston Street has recycling bins. And they're all crack covers broken and they empty into the recycle. That contaminates the whole area, is that correct?
The wetness.
Yeah, the wetness.
Yeah, well, it's part that, but it's also the truck itself, everybody's truck, whether you have these ASLs, an automatic side loader that one can truck. The top is open. It's open, so not only is maybe some of the barrels getting wet, contents of the barrel, but the rain's going into the truck as well. And, you know, going back a ways, they primarily zeroed in on Providence. It was, we were getting rejection more so than any other community. And then it started to spread through other communities throughout the state. It's the same, everybody's got the same type of trucks or the same type of pickup. So that's one of the components of rejection, wetness,
So I guess,
along with plastic bags and everything else.
so I guess my question is, let's roll the clock back years. And we used to have the blue bin and the green bin,
That
and we
was,
put that out and they get soaking wet.
yeah.
So what's the difference then compared to now?
And
What was our recycling rate then compared to now?
I think I'm gonna,
Ballpark.
yeah, I think our recycling rate when we had the bins was probably in the low 20% range. Because everything in the bin was acceptable.
And what is it now?
4%.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe we need to have a separate meeting on just recycling, which is, I don't know, but anyway, food for thought.
Thank you, Rob.
Oh, okay,
Sorry.
everyone.
This will be quick. Sorry, I'm sorry, I wasn't interrupted. I wasn't very well. I did watch and also talk to the chairwoman, but I had a question about actually this bullet under the table that Councilman Vargas was pointing out, that the prices above student city will forego $349,000 in unused funding for matching collection, card supply and education, and that will not be carried forward. Why are we foregoing $350,000?
That was part of last year's extension. That was money that had been never used by the previous administration, and as part of the agreement to be extended, we forego that, gave that money.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I think we will now, it's up to you. Would you like to discuss, make a motion?
Make a motion, we can do number 2.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made to approve the 1-year extension, which is what it is. And we have had some very good discussion on what we would like to see in the future. In our next contract, and so the motion has been made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Sanchez. All in favor? Aye. All opposed. Thank you so much, and thank you, Ed, very much for coming.
Sure.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Madam Clerk, if you would read item number 1.
Item 1, an ordinance amending chapter 21, revenue and finance of the Providence Code of Ordinance to add Article 8 in tax annual period.
We're going to have to speak to this evening.
Okay, raise your right hand. If there are penalty of perjury or testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please state your name.
Lawrence Smith, City Chief Financial Officer, City of Providence.
Brandon, Little City Collector. Thank you so much for coming this evening to present on this matter. Nice to see you. All right, we'll let the Chief, are you beginning?
Madam Chair, I'm here to join, collector in support of the matter before the committee, and she will take the lead on presentation.
Okay, thank you.
And so the tax amnesty program, proposing it to run from May 1st to June 30th of this year. It will offer taxpayers an opportunity to pay overdue motor vehicle and family taxes with a waiver of interest. We would propose to do a 311 push to notify taxpayers, as well as we also have a database of emails, so we can do a push that way. We'll post on our website, the program specifics. The taxpayer would fill out an application along with payment. Once it's approved, it would be processed, the payment would be processed, and the taxpayer would be notified.
And once again, time period for the
May 1st through June 30th.
well, any questions on this? Yes, Council.
How many people, I know I'm for this, I'm sponsoring, because I had one of the, I had a guy call me, I think I gave you guys, was that his car got jumped, and it was the son who jumped it, and had the plates on it, and it was like 3 years old, they came down and can't register his car, and he wanted to register it, and it's through the roof. But how many people do you think this does affect, if you had to guess?
Well, so we do have, outstanding delinquent motor vehicle taxes going back to 2005. However, realistically speaking, I would say that, maybe the last 5 years prior to the phase out is where we'll get the most return. Anyone who has a block or registration block, for renewal would have had to pay in order to be, cleared for registration, so. We also are in the second year of the renewal cycle since the elimination of the car tax, so I think we're looking at maybe the last 5 years or so, we're probably looking at about, maybe 14,000, bills. So if someone has multiple vehicles, that would be considered a bill, so, that number would be a little bit lower as far as the tax.
So in that case of that person jumping the car, they would obviously be under that umbrella, or what would they have to pay?
They would just pay the tax.
Just the tax, not all the fines?
Yes, this covers the waiver of interest only, the actual tax itself, is not reduced.
And that would free them up to register a car.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairwoman, thank you, for presenting this. Have we done something like this similar in the past before?
Not that I'm aware of, not since I.
Yeah.
And would there be, intentions to do it again, or is this kind of a one-off?
So the state law allows for, two amnesty, 60-day amnesty periods in the fiscal year 24 and 25.
Specific to the car tax?
And tandem tax.
or tangible tax?
Yes, Councilor Anderson.
Well, one, thank you for you guys for being here tonight, I really appreciate it. Can you give some examples about some of the tangible personal property taxes that people might have overdue? Just like, what are some examples of that? That you've seen?
So, professional offices, anything that, well, for the most part, any business that requires a license has to be current in their taxes to be able to renew. So a lot of the overdue tangible taxes are those businesses that, don't require a license, or, such as professional businesses, accounting firms,
Okay.
law offices.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and thank you, because yeah, someone in my ward has a consulting business out of their home, and I think they've gotten some of these fees, so I just wanted to.
Yeah, any other questions? Yes.
Since we're talking about tangible taxes, not maybe specific to this, but I've gotten asked a couple of times in the past few months, and what was like the recent state law in that passed last year that had to do with tangible taxes?
So that's that was to provide a statewide personal tangible tax exemption up to and under $50,000. So starting with this year, the liability. If you're a business that has reported properly, and your assets that are normally reported to the return of the assessment fall below 50,000, your bill will be exempted, and the city or town statewide will be reimbursed by the state.
So that's going forward, like,
Effective the July capital.
so if a business has less than 50,000 in tangible taxes, they shouldn't be billed for it?
But they need to file, they need to report under the annual return of the assessment, report their assets as they should, including less depreciation. If that sum is below 50,000, they will be exempted from the tax bill quoted by the city assessor's office. Later, the assessor will send that to the State Department of Revenue, and we will be reimbursed by state revenue.
Any other questions from committee members? All right, Councilor Vargas.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll come back.
What about, thank you, Queenie. What about property taxes?
Real estate taxes?
Yeah, real estate.
Delinquent real estate taxes, the mechanism in place for enforcement there is tax sale. So that is not included in the state law.
So anybody who owns real estate taxes, they're not.
No, they're not eligible.
eligible. So we're saying only tangible taxes, car taxes,
Yes,
bicycle taxes, motorcycle taxes.
yes, that's
What-
and then the motor vehicle.
What else? That's it,
That's it.
Motor vehicle and camper.
more than that.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Graves, I'm so sorry.
That was on. My question is if they get an adverse decision, they have to pay immediately everything. And
Then
then
would have to be payment in full, yes, within that 60-day period.
okay, the 68 days. And then they can come back to to council 10 days after they paid it in full and try to, get a claim. Is that,
That's only if their application is not approved.
that's what I just, yeah, if they have an adverse
Right.
decision. So if they don't get it paid within that 60 days, they can't come before anybody and because a lot of people may not have the money in 60 days, you know. That's what I was wondering. So I totally kicked out of the whole.
Yes, the law allows for 60 days.
Okay.
Period.
Yes, yes, Councilor Vargas. No worries, no
So
worries.
clarification would be interest only, right?
Interest and late charges only, yes,
Interest only on the
Yeah.
taxes what they own.
that's correct.
It's not, you're not forgiving them the tax,
No,
interest only.
interest only.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, yes.
So you said there's two, we can do 60 days, so if we do this for 60. We
Yeah,
can
so
do
this-
another one
In the next fiscal year, yes.
for the next fiscal year,
Yes.
are we planning on doing that? Or depends on how this goes, okay, and I'm just gonna follow up, and I know it's something totally different. But, have we looked at, or is it worth looking at? Not on here, the real estate, instead of selling someone's house. Going to tax sale, have we ever looked at, and I'm just throwing this out there, nothing to do with this. Like having an amnesty for taxes that are due for houses, without doing a tax sale.
We have it at the local level, but as the collector testified, there are a number of processes that are used to avoid a taxpayer being put in that jeopardy, including if they're elderly, running housing steps in, was provided by the collectors to ensure that we're not, removing anything from the property. The collector's office works with outside agencies and outside collection agencies to prevent that type of situations. And really, it is an enforcement tool. The threat of that, I may use that, the threat of this tax sale produces the revenue that comes in between the period of February and May before the tax sale, where that list of properties that have been identified is significantly reduced. Year over year, the collector, I'm sure will testify that in the last several years, the size of the tax sale is nowhere near it was a decade ago. That's a credit to taxpayers who have remained current. If I may add, Mr. Leader, during COVID, the fourth quarter of the tax year, which included the tax sale, while we postponed it to August. During COVID, we saw prolifically tax payments being made sooner, and I think that's because of people receiving their care payments and their COVID payments. The first thing they think of is, I want to protect my family, and they did pay. We saw no loss of tax revenue. But if there was not a tax sale notice, the city would not receive the revenue on the list. And it's not meant to make an additional revenue on that, it's meant to use it as a means to collect.
I was just looking to see that how many tax sales do you think we have a year? Yeah,
Just one.
just one, no, I understand about how many tax sales.
How many
do we sell?
properties?
Properties do we actually put in the tax sale?
So,
Roughly.
so if this year, right now we have 800. So normally, we've had up to 1,500, 2,000,
Right,
but
but
that's a starting point. They have 90 days. Last year we started right around where we are now, and by the date of tax sale, we were down to 180 properties.
But if we thought of maybe doing a tax amnesty and maybe we can go from 180 to 0? Or 800 to 0? I mean, just
We-
as throwing it out there,
We'd have to give us, it's complex, so we take a little bit of work.
just like a one-time deal and then say, hey, you know, we collected this money, these people having housing and stuff. People lose, you know, we don't want more people in the streets. And then, like you said, elderly people, they get to a certain,
I will
some have
say-
dementia or whatever, they don't even know, you know, what's going on.
I will say it's worthy of pursuit, but if I may also add, and again, with knowledge collector. Oftentimes they repeat offenders, oftentimes, sad to say, and I don't mean that to injure anyone's reputation, but it's the same individuals year over year. That really find themselves in that same position, so it becomes a question of affordability, can they afford it to begin with? And is the cash flow been properly planned, so. I don't mean to impose our will over anyone's finances, but I'm sure the collector will tell you that year over year. The hard luck requests that come before her staff are generally the same people, in the same situation. And they're often reminded that this is gonna happen again next year. Many times the collector will make a compassionate agreement to avoid that, but it happens again, so. We do try.
Okay, right, like I said, I was just throwing it out. since it-
And I just, if I can add, if anyone has a hardship or a
Correct.
temporary cash flow, we do take that into consideration and we do, you know, try to help as much as we can.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Councilor Shannon.
Yeah, no, Chair, well, I was just gonna say what the collector said, I've had personal different neighbors that had super unfortunate hardships, and we came in and met with the tax collector, and they definitely do what they can to reduce some of those extra fees and interest. So definitely, if you guys have anyone in your ward, definitely just try to set something up with the collector.
We appreciate it very much, really.
That's as much as, that is as much the collector's job as it is the collector, to be, where they can be fair and compassionate there.
We really appreciate that. Thank you. Do I have any other questions? I think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you very much. And so would anyone like to make a motion? That motion made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Graves, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very much, we really appreciate it. Okay, Madam Clerk, item number 3.
Item 6, resolution authorizing approval of the following contract award to amend the cap of sidewalk, road, and drainage construction. Barry Dunn, $3,954,874.
Okay. And who do we have here today?
Brian Anderson, Deputy Chief Engineer of the Department of Public Works.
Wonderful. Okay, and that's it, and we just have the director back there just in case.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be for it. Okay. Please say your name.
He is here under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please put your name again.
Brian Anderson.
So nice to have you. Thank you for joining us. Okay, we need to talk about this resolution, this contract for sidewalk and drainage construction with various vendors. If you can talk to us a little bit about what this is for.
Okay, what this is it's a blanket contract that we put out periodically. To bring contractors on board to help facilitate procuring, mostly sidewalk improvement work. So we've used it with our CIP funds, we've used it with MIF funds through the council. We don't use it with CDBG funds currently because there's not federal language in it. But basically it's a contract that goes out to bid for interested contractors. And instead of providing a cost for a project, they provide unit costs for elements of items, work items. So we'll get the unit cost, and then when we have a project that we would like to use as procurement for, we'll come up with an estimate that has a number of different repair items or work items. We look at the unit costs based on the quantities for that project of work for each of those items, and then we can determine who the low bidder would be based on the unit cost. And then we'll approach that contractor to see if they have the time and desire to take on the work. And if they do, then we bring them on through this procurement method. If they don't, it's kind of like a standard bid, if the low bidder can't take on the project, you go to the next bidder up. The next low bidder. So what we found with the sidewalk work is this generally a way to increase, efficiency where we can get work done much faster, bring a contractor on in a matter of weeks versus 3 to 4 months. And we find that the prices are typically equivalent or a little bit lower than we would find if it was each project went out to bid individually.
Okay, and my question is, how did you come up with this figure?
All right, so the figure for this and what, you've probably seen through the course of the last 2 years, because we went out to bid on this in early 2022. So as projects come up, in some cases, when we first did the project, we might present what we'd like to see for cap amount, say CIP funds, without knowing it. But as council projects come up or other projects come up, in this case, we're looking to spend ARPA dollars for the sidewalk. So that came up after we procured and went out to bid. So what we want to do is increase the cap amount to allow us to use this procurement mechanism to complete the sidewalk project.
Okay, and I know there's been some discrepancy between I'm sorry that the chief isn't here, Hawkins, to address it, but there has been some disagreement, at least. I think we're resolved on this. I want to make sure.
My understanding is we are resolved.
Okay.
We work very closely with the council office, so I'm somewhat familiar.
Okay, just to explain to our committee members, I think that there was a little argument about some ARPA funds for sidewalks, whether they were for our boards and for our purposes. And I think it was claimed that I think for some reason the city thought it was their amount of money, but it's I think it was about 3.7 million. Is that
I don't know the exact, there was an account that was set up through the ARPA in public properties that I think DPW and the council were both under the understanding that
it was
the funds, but it was actually the same
it was the
same account and same pot of money. So
right.
We would have come in the fall or a month or two ago with this, but that arose through working with the council office. We started noticing some stuff that made both sides question it. So we just wanted to make sure everything was solid and in place before we moved forward. And my understanding is that everything's been resolved, and that's why we're bringing this.
And that is my understanding too. I just wanted to make sure it was on the record. So the 3.7, I think, is the money that we were planning was for council projects, sidewalk projects, and that is not any portion of this money that you're looking to expend.
No, it is not.
Item number 3.
So what we're looking is we have a budget through ARPA funds of around $3.8 million. Of that budget, we typically, for a sidewalk project, it gets broken out into different tasks. One is engineering and inspection. So that's, a percentage of the money typically is that, police details, and also construction. So in addition to that, on this project, we were approached in the fall or late summer by the Rhode Island Department of Transportation to say they had some funds that they could use for us for matching funds. So our total project budget is actually more than our original 3.8. It's actually closer to $5 million because if we can realize in timing and everything, about $1.16 million of ride-out funds, that as long as we can get a contractor on board by the summer, or contractors on board, then that meets one of their requirements, and then we can use it as it's not they don't give us the money, but basically they'll reimburse us, but my understanding is about a 2-week time frame once we submit the bill to them. So we'll pay the bill, and then they'll give us money back. So in this fund, we have more money in our budget than the money we need to realize the full match from RIDOT. So we can time that out, so we're not ever in a position where we don't have money to pay the bill. We have the money, and then we'll get the money in, and then we'll move on with, keep moving on with the work. So I think we're in good shape there.
That's good. And any restrictions on the RIDOT grant money?
Well, there's things like we have to make sure, what we do anyway is we meet American with Disabilities Act requirements. There's you know, the wage requirements, things like that, you know, which we do anyway, so. We're in good shape with RIDOT. We just want to get in the ground as soon as the weather allows and start getting some sidewalk repairs. And for context, this project, we're hoping will result in about, and this is not complete replacement, our projects are we try to fix the damaged areas and leave the intact areas there so we can extend our work as far as possible and make repairs along the longest stretch of corridor we can. So, we're hoping between 9 and 14 mile sidewalk repairs as a result of this project. And the reason there's kind of a variability there is when you pull up the sidewalk panel, you don't always know what you're gonna find. So some repairs are more expensive than thought, some are less, so that's why there's a range there.
Okay.
And I will say, for the purpose of this, we have a separate blanket contractor on call contract with, I believe was for contract supply with our engineering team, so that piece of the budget's already, the cap amount's already been approved. This is just basically the dollar amount was based on what we have for police details and construction, just to kind of get us so that we can cover bringing contractors on. But those budget allocations that we had for police details and construction went into coming up with our proposed capital on this.
Okay, I'm gonna let somebody else ask questions. Who, yes, Counselor Ingerbach.
Thank you so much, Sherman, for this really great explanation, which I am totally supportive of, and also have a question of, if this was originally early 2022, do we go back and do like quality controls to make sure that the lowest bidder is providing services in line with, like high quality, not just say that we've been asking, is there been some sidewalk repairs in my neighborhood where like during the time of year where it's just the patching and the asphalt is like real janky, it's all over the place, it's like in people's yards, it's like, it just feels like they kind of like spread it around and then like, oh, good luck, and it's just kind of everywhere and it gets into like dog's paws and this kind of thing.
So first, if you ever have that, please contact me and we can reach out, because it's not only our projects that do sidewalk repairs, all the utility companies in the project, whenever they do a service location or other things, they're responsible, and we, you know, we don't get the eyes on that, like we would like that we do on our own projects.
Okay.
So
It's the best way to do that 311 or emailing you directly.
if there's a problem with the sidewalk, you can go through the 311, it's good, and you can certainly, if you reach out with Kyle or Sam in the council office, they can get in touch with us. Yeah, we can look into that. The 311 is a good way to do it. As far as the contractors on this, when we go through the bidding process, there is qualifications they have to submit to us. 2 years is generally, you know, our contract right now, just so you get a sense of it, it was for 2 years with 2 one-year options. So we're in the process right now collecting new prices from each contractor, because the first 2 years is up in March 31st. So we'll get the letter of intent if they want to stay on, and then we can move forward with it. You know, the third option or the first of 2 option years. But as far as the quality, these are contractors we've worked with, pretty much everyone on the list we've worked with on various projects, and they all do work. Is there problems from time to time? Yes, and we work with them to a lot of times get warranty repairs, depending on why why is there a deficiency? Was it something the contractor created? Was it something in the design, or is it just something environmental, you know, out of everyone's control? So we work with them and we will get warranty repairs when it's necessary. But generally, we do have good work out of all of the contractors on the list.
Thank you. And yeah, if it is the utility or anyone else doing a janky job, we should we're like having.
Yeah, and we what you may have heard too, we're constant struggle to try to keep up with all that, but we've just recently gone to online permitting system. We've been developing some utility coordination maps and other things, so hopefully in the next, as time passes, that we'll get that stronger and stronger, so that we can have a little more, hold them a little more accountable. So for instance, the new system, they're going to be required to submit a photo of the final patch, and then we can close out the permit. Until then, so if it gets to a point where we're 1 or 2 years down the road and there's a significant amount of work we don't have record that it's been completed, other than emergency work, we'll consider holding up and not issuing additional permits until they get all their patches completed. So,
thank you. I appreciate that.
that's what we're trying to head to and trying. It's a constant battle, but
I can imagine, thank you, I appreciate
I
it.
should use battle, it's a constant effort to try to keep track.
I'll be back.
Utilities are a vital service for our residents, so.
They're a vital
That
service.
was not an interest.
Mm.
Counselor Graves.
My question is, of these six, how many of the minorities?
So, Lucina Brothers, I believe is
I figured
a,
that was one, but.
the one on there that is, I don't believe anyone else is. What we have found, is that the sidewalk work in general, it does get difficult for them to bring subs on because there's not a lot of contractors that can meet their time requirements and, you know, each of these contractors, I guess quality requirements. So that's not to say there's not contractors out there, but the ones they've approached. So a lot of times they will get waivers on this. And we have been, you know, asked, you know, in the past, Councilor Vargas has wanted, asking us to see if we, how can we open this up to give opportunities to other businesses. So, although we do have 2 1-year options on this contract, we are working with purchasing right now to figure out how can we, you know, in the upcoming year or so, rebid this contract out so that we can kind of figure out how to open it every year. So that every year people have, instead of, you know, in this case, it's every 4 years. We're trying to get that more so that every year someone would have the ability. We'd like to say we could do a rolling one where anybody can come in at any time. The unfortunate part with that is all of the unit prices are public. So what we don't want is to make it unfair to any contractor on the list because somebody new coming in knows what the prices are. So those are some of the issues we're trying to work out on how we can make this a little more regular to do that. So that should be coming in the upcoming years.
Okay, go ahead, yes, please, continue.
Jumping on Councilman Andrews' thing, there are whole streets that have been torn up in my ward, and have that black stuff all the way across, and not only is it coming up, but there's sinkholes. So, I mean, when it sinks down and it's like, one of them was like this deep in the road.
Due to utility work primarily.
Yeah.
There is a thing in 311 to put in for that. We are developing also a map that we're hoping to get on this year of utility patch tracking. So every time we get that request in, you know, we try to go out when we get notified, we notify the utilities, try to get it done, but we're also trying to get it visually on a map that can be on our webpage. So that anybody can go in and see who has outstanding patches, and if they have too many, then we'll shut down the permits until they can get their patches fixed. And also we can kind of, you know, where every deficient patch is not, it has a varying degree of how fast it needs to be repaired. Some might be something that's defective and it's not a large hazard, it can wait, you know, 1 or 2 months to a project completed. Other ones are immediate concern because someone get hurt. So we're trying to flag those for priorities too, that so the utilities can focus in on the ones that definitely need immediate attention, but overall fix them all.
They are all getting repaired, but it immediately seems like it's the same thing over and over again, same streets. What about,
If you want, if you can email me, or you can go through Kyle and Sam, let me know what streets you have specific concerns. I can check to see what utility projects have been there, and we can try to let them know you need to go out and address these problems.
and the other thing is, a lot of us have the state roads, and they're doing all types of stuff over on Smith Street. Who's in charge? I hate to play that basketball.
If it's a state road, the permits for road work goes to the state. However, if it's a road with typically is with sidewalks, if there's sidewalk impacts, we have to permit the sidewalk because we have responsibility of the sidewalk. Typically, but we don't have responsibility over the whole road, so anything that would be right out would approve that permit.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairwoman, thank you, Brian, for being here. First question, going back to the contractors, being able to submit proposals for this, procurement process. So when's the next time that's gonna open up for contractors?
I'm not 100% sure. I want to have something out before the end of the year. It's
So
timing.
I'm getting kind of confused. What are we talking about, like the 2 year plus the 1 year options? Is that?
So what we have, this current contract we have with them, it's, we'll call it, the total possible duration is 4 years for that contract before we go back out and get bids. We're just finishing up the second year. We're asked contractors to give us their desire to stay on for a third, because we would like to hold the contract for 1 more year. You know, we haven't evaluated the 4th year yet. But also, I mean, we have a construction season coming up, so we need to keep it moving, but we also have some revisions we want to make to the procurement or to the bidding process, so that we can use this also for like, community development block grant CDBG projects. But we have to get some federal language and things in there so that we can use it. Right now, we don't have that language, so we can't use this procurement method for that. So as soon as we can work out some of those, then we want to go back at it. I'd love to give you a definitive, we're gonna go out in a month or two, but knowing the construction season's coming up, there's an influx of some new funding and stuff for paving and other things that we have a mechanism in place, so we do have to focus on some of the construction project, getting that done. As well as trying to keep progress moving on rebidding this.
Okay,
Yes, please.
so this is specific just to sidewalk. Correct?
This is primarily used for sidewalks. Planning uses it for some stuff. There's some paving jobs we've done through it. But the biggest work that we do through this is typically sidewalks.
Okay.
But that's not the only thing it's used for.
Yes, I mean, how do we like know like what planning's using it for?
Planning, I mean, we usually work with planning to put in a cap thing and what purchasing likes to see. You know, although, you know, early on when we first put it out, we might put an overall budget. But where possible, they, you know, instead of just throwing money at the cap, they would like to see us incrementally put money in to say, this is what it would be, this ARPA sidewalk project. We don't know who the contractors are, but we know it's that project, or whether it's a council project where we know we're bringing on a certain vendor to do that work. But then, because then the board of contract supply can kind of see a little easier how the money's being used. It is advantageous to us to get work done and all to have just a, you know, an overall cap, not knowing who's going to be used or what it's going to be used for, so that we keep work going as stuff comes up. But where we can, we do like to give a little more detail on what the project is or who the vendors are.
Makes sense. So outside of the CDBG projects, is this covering all of the pending sidewalk projects that DPW is working on, or is there another bucket of funding that's still?
So the current projects we have right now, and this was used for, there's the neighborhood infrastructure fund, the fiscal year 23 project, project that started last year. That one, the contractor's coming back to finish up this spring. So that's one that was used under this. The ARPA, our current ARPA project that we have, we're looking to bring contractors on.
The city's ARPA.
Yeah, the ARPA, so the funding that DPW has been charged with doing sidewalk improvements for that are funded by ARPA. There's also the ARPA funding there's a lot of, like the CIP, there's a lot of different line items, so the DPW sidewalk line item.
And that's the one that you guys gave us like the map and stuff, right?
There is a map for that, yes.
Like that's like mostly like main corridors.
It was this, yes, so it was, I think it was the map with the green, the dark green, the light green, things, and it showed some of our previous projects on it. Yeah, that was probably the one. I know we give you ones also for the council projects, and there's some other mapping too. Eventually, we'll try to get that all into one map, but yeah, I believe that is mapped.
So are council projects covered under this as well, or?
What we would do with the council projects, I would say typically we do use this mechanism or propose using this mechanism for council projects. We're currently working with, you know, you and the council and the council office to put together the fiscal year 24 project and the council sidewalk under the ARPA funding. So I believe we'll have meetings coming up, we'll be generating stuff there, but because there was sort of a question of what funding went to who and what money was available, a lot of that progress sort of had to get put on hold because we didn't know, we had to wait till we could find out exactly which was available before we could move forward. So now we're back and moving forward with council projects, and I suspect we are going to be proposing amendments, cap amendments to this coming back. This will be a fairly frequent thing because it's a good way, like I said before, we get prices that are typically, typically lower than we found with the last couple of bids we've done for CDBG. If we could have used this mechanism, we would have got better price. That's not to say that's the case everywhere. We find that it is in the ballpark. It's similar to what we would find if we went out to bid. So we feel like we're getting, a couple benefits to the city. One is we're getting fair and reasonable pricing. And two, we're able to procure and get a contractor on board in a matter of weeks versus 3 or 4 months. So typically, if we're amending a cap each time, so there's a couple-week process to submit the purchasing to get our board a contract and supply. If that gets approved, then we can bring a contractor on right after that. So that's what it's like a 2 or 3 week process to get someone on board.
Last question.
Please.
What is the, I know you guys have like a time period where concrete can't be laid down. Is that the same?
It's weather dependent. So typically, just for rough estimate, usually we have a winter moratorium from November 15th to April 15th. A lot of times we'll lift that, either, depending what the weather's doing, but once you start getting towards freezing below certain, between paving and concrete, there's extra measures that need to happen. And then once it gets too cold, particularly with concrete, it cures too fast. It doesn't set up well, and then you end up with issues.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna ask, is the time frame still the same for paving as well?
Paving's a little more flexible because, just through the nature of the material and putting it down, you get away with a little bit cooler temperatures on paving. Generally it's ready for traffic in a matter of hours. Concrete needs, just initially 24 plus hours to set up, and then, it's usually several weeks 28 days or so before you get full strength out of it. So if it's cold at night and everything for that whole 28-day period, then you're going to have problems. Whereas paving set up, pretty much within a 24-hour period. So you can get windows of weather that work better than you can with concrete.
Last question.
Okay. No, please.
Oscar.
What's the system that you guys use to keep track of like what utilities are digging up?
What is the permitting system?
No, like what's your system that you use to like say like Rhode Energy tore up sidewalk in front of 125 Rushmore Ave 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks. I already talked to someone, Craig. So like what system do you guys use internally that shows that Rhode Energy did this and they have until June 30th or whatever to complete it?
What we have is all of the utilities and the other one digging in the street is required to get a road opening permit. Up until this new system that we just put on, which is an online system, we're using an access database. We're taking a paper application in, putting it into an access database. And also it was a large utility project. We had a utility map for the large projects. So it was just basically we could look it up, we could run reports, we search for work. If somebody says, okay, there's an issue here, we can look up and see how many permits were pulled over the course of time. Typically we have records back 10 years. And then that'll be growing, but in the database, we have about 10 years worth of records.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, you want to?
No, so I was just saying, like, so how do we like proactively like ensure that they are completing the work unless like Cause what it sounds like is unless someone puts a complaint or someone reaches out, then we're not like going back
Yeah, so there's,
to locations.
so what, due to staff availability, limited resources, everything like that, what we have been doing is, there's a 5-year warranty on the work. So to try to capture things before they age out of that 5 years, usually year 4, around 5, we'll send people out every fall to go out and look at all the patches from that year. It's difficult because up until recently, or up until now, we haven't either had the software or the ability to map the thing, so it, might be an address, so we're trying to take that address and we'll get a dot on the property and try to code it in GIS now to get the thing, so you don't know exactly where that dot was. So it gets a little difficult, but generally, every year we're trying to go out and look 5 years back to see what needs attention before it comes out of warranty. And then we'll put a notice out to the utilities to try to fix that. What that isn't able to capture is anyone who didn't actually do what they were supposed to and do their final restoration, say that year or the following year. So something might sit there until someone notices it or we get around that. For the new system that we just did, we built in a feature to it that they need to submit a photo of that final patch. And we'll work out the logistics of that. But the intent is that we get a photo that will show enough of the background so we know kind of where it is. But that way, when we can have some accountability, have them kind of come back and say, we did fix this. Here's the photo. We can, if time allows, we can go out and look at it. We might see in the photo, okay, that one looks good, this one doesn't. We kind of best use our time. And then if we notice that, each year at the end of the season, or I think our permit requires that they have, depending on what time of the year, we don't want them doing the permanent repair in the winter, so that might come by June 1st or June 30th. So say June 1st each year, we review how many permits we have that aren't closed out. And then we'll approach each of those permittees to say, do you have pictures? Can you demonstrate this was done? You never notified us it was closed. And if they have too many, we don't issue permits till they fix those. That's the intent, trying to go forward so we can try to capture some of these sooner. But it is a challenge.
Yeah.
So
I'm like putting in my calendar, like everything I've seen done.
it's a constant challenge. It's hard, but we're trying to use.
Yeah, no, it's not like
tools we
big. I
have.
appreciate you guys. Yeah, it's definitely something we gotta
so
keep an eye out.
I-
Especially with all this money we're spending right now, we wanna make sure that, we know that emergencies happen, stuff's gonna get digged up, but how do we proactively ensure that?
Well, that's what we're trying with I don't want to say, with the resources we have and the staff we have. We'd love to look at everything on a continual basis. That's not possible, so we're trying to figure out things to minimize the amount of stuff that slips through the cracks as best we can. It'll be an evolving process as we go to the online system
And of course, we're gonna be very consistent. Budget, how your department is doing. It's a favorite of mine, so, you guys make this work, so we need to make sure that you guys are staffed. Yes, I think we've come for Karen.
So I got a question and then a statement, but I think you already answered this question. I think it was, Councilman Chan Sanchez's question number 17. That about this money, it is actually just a carry, no, we have NIF, we have ARPA, and this is just carrying over. Is that correct?
for the money that we're looking for the cap.
This one a year now.
So all this is we're saying, okay, we have a budget for the DPW's line item for sidewalks. We would like to add that to the cap amount on this so that we can use this as a procurement method.
Okay.
So it doesn't encumber the money at this point. It's just saying that the finance committee, the board of supply is aware that we're doing this and they're okay with that. And then when it comes time to we bring a contractor on, depending if it's 1, 2, however many contractors we bring on for what amounts, we will submit to purchasing to get purchase orders for that, and that's where that money will become encumbered.
Okay.
It's the same as if we went out for a traditional bid. I don't say this went out for bid. If we went out on a standard bid process and we got it back, and we would pull a purchase order, and at that point, that's where the money would be encumbered. It's still the same purchase order. This is just an alternate procurement method that follows the rules and guidelines that we have to abide by.
But we're still on schedule for doing sidewalks this spring.
Yeah, so right now we're in discussions with a few contractors, pending, you know, the approval of the cap or not on there. But we wanted to try to reach out to, because people get busy. So we have a few contractors that are interested in this work. And once we get approval, we're confident we can bring them on board for a large portion, if not all of the work that we're trying to get done under the DPW's ARPA line item.
And also I'd like to give kudos to Ryan because Kyle, I don't know if the council people, but Kyle works very well with him. And he's very attentive on, you know, the app streets and everything, give it to Kyle, Kyle sends them over and he will address them. And I just want to give him kudos since he's
Thank you
here.
very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Brian.
Brian, you're not going anywhere, are you?
No.
As far as I know.
Just checking. Yes, that's what great.
I won't give us back so many questions, but I do have.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, I do have a few though.
Jim, what is the next one question?
One of the questions to me is, the sidewalks. There were several lists out there, and some of the people that were sitting on those lists have been sitting there for years. How do you go about getting this done, and how come there's multiple lists? Can we figure out a way to combine well, I know the, Highland have, for me, for my ward, because I now have a task force that's working on getting our sidewalks done. But it makes no sense to me for us to have a 311, this, and you know, the DPW, everybody having a list. And some of the people have multiple lists, but some of them aren't, you know, and so they're falling through the cracks. So, and you're telling me every 5 years, but some of them have been there for years, longer than that, so.
Try to answer. There are multiple lists for a few things, so I'll say first, sidewalk repairs come from one is residents who are saying, citizens that notice it. Those have come in over the years through several different mechanisms, whether people walk in, whether they're contacting the MCC, whether they're, you know, do 2311, whether they're coming in directly to DPW, depending who they talk to, they can get lost, you know, people don't, they put them in different places. There's been a database kind of maintained in the past, and these are for the individual repair requests for, you know, sidewalk in front of this building or my property needs to be repaired. Those, is probably seen with our sidewalks, the amount of repairs needed far exceeds the city's ability to complete those repairs. But so that came in, and there was a few different database iterations over the years that got, I mean, there was over 8,000 to 10,000 entries from years, and nobody really knew the status. So worked a little bit with Norellis and Mayor Center for City Services on the 311 to see what some of the capabilities are there. We're trying to get implemented with our highway group and others, so that all the sidewalk repair requests that are from individual property owners and others will go through the 311 system. And that way, at least, you know, it can be sort of tracked and if a temporary repair is made, there's some fields in there to say a temporary repair is made. Flag it as, you know, we know we're limited in what we can repair, but we know we can repair this one, or we want to repair this one, so we can tag that. Highway group, you know, will kind of be the repository of those type of requests, because they're the ones, it's a routine daily maintenance. But I will say that the repair requests coming in far exceed what our highway group is capable, you know, has the resources to do. So the list that we had prior, that 8,000 plus, we didn't get rid of it, we pushed it aside because it got to a point where it's just unusable. So if somebody were to come in now and say, look, I was on this list, we can go back, look at that, and then we can put it into the new system, but with the date of the previous one, so that maybe it gets kind of bumped up a little bit. But that's just trying to manage the data out there, so I don't wanna say that. Getting anyone's, too hopeful or optimistic that that's gonna solve the sidewalk problem, it's not, but it's a way to start trying to do that, if we get. Legal claims or something, we can put that in and flag it as we got a claim on this thing, so it's just a way to start, so as we. Get our crews and resources bolstered up, that at least that tracking mechanism in place to help keep better track of it, so that's one piece. And that's where you're probably hearing, look, I put my name on the list, I called 10 years ago. Unfortunately, that is a very real reality that I don't have a solution for. Other than we're trying to get the tracking stuff better, and hopefully in time we'll have a better capacity to do in-house repairs. Other sources of list is DPW, if we're looking at. There's been a matrix of pricing presentations on sort of the overlays of the different pedestrian heat zones. Of, the bus stops, the libraries, other things where people are walking, and that's where. When we get CIP money or things like ARPA, we want to expand those high pedestrian areas. Or the areas we think are high pedestrians, so that we can make repairs. Where the most people are traveling. That doesn't solve the problem of individual homeowners that might have. A tree that's popped up a panel. But those, you get that one repair, you make that one repair, you look up and down the street. There might be 5 more of those on either side. So that stretch of road hasn't really. Been in that one section has, but the ability to traverse that hasn't been solved. And then the third source, so that's DPW will look at more of the high pedestrian corridors. Where we think the most pedestrians are. And then there's council lists that come out, the individual councilors will. Look at their ward and the constituents and figure out where they think the most need is, and they'll look to us to try to help them get those specific repairs done. So typically there's a list we might have for if we have money to do a project. There's the repairs that come in, so it's kind of a third list, and then I'll call it just a list from council, but the council list might just with different funding sources. So there's various iterations of that list, but those are the kind of the 3 main areas that come in. Typically, the council ones list, have funding. We work with the council to get those completed. The DPW ones will, the individual ones that come in, that's where, recently we have one concrete crew, so they're, only so many repairs they can do in a set period of time. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I guess it's best. Yes, yeah, the other thing, when it really is hammering, sidewalks, my next question is the drainage. Because I've noticed there's sectors in Smith Hill, in my ward that, never flooded. Now they're flooding like crazy because of all this weather that we've been having. I'm gonna address one that's down at the rec, but the drainage thing is ridiculous, so. Go ahead.
The drainage is definitely a huge issue. We've had a lot of complaints and calls of flooding and everything, and it seems to be, as the weather patterns continue to change, that becomes something. And I know Craig, he's been working very closely with a lot of property owners and stuff on different flooding issues. Dave Mambro, the sewer superintendent's been dealing with a lot of those. I can speak in generalities about them, but I don't know the permitting and others, so I don't have the full details of the specific flooding areas, but it is an issue in engineering. We are actively trying to look at ways to address it.
So now, I guess my question is, now that our weather pattern is changing, is there ways of us we're gonna need more funding. If before it was just really the sidewalks, and most places didn't have a lot of drainage issues, but now every place is starting to have issues with drainage. And we still have issues, the same huge issue with sidewalks. We're gonna be back to 8,000 or more, with the addition, of the two, so. Where is the funding, where do you think we can, how do you think we can address this and get more funding, or can we separate the two and have two separate things and maybe try to get? I don't know what we can do, I really don't, you probably don't have an answer either, but.
Occasionally, there's grant opportunities, some of the funding we pursue is community development block grant, that's money that the planning department secures for the council that has some ability to try to get different projects done, sometimes it's sidewalks, sometimes it's community center improvements or other things. There's the NIF funding, those are sort of static, it's sort of a kind of a known quantity that are currently happening. It's not an increased source. And there's always the question of, does it come from the general fund or not? I don't know, because there is definitely a high maintenance need. We have roads, sidewalks, drainage systems, sewer systems. All of that is, we're an aging city, it's aging infrastructure, it's all gonna require. Unfortunate reality, it's all going to require funding and significant funding. I don't know the next person has where to find that. I keep my eyes open. Where it's things like RIDOT having the, coming to us and saying there's some money we want to give you for these type of things. So we want to, like, we grab that opportunity and appreciate their generosity on that to try to do that. So if we see things like that, we will try to bring money in. But
I put you on the spot, I really don't, I just don't have an answer, I want to know.
Fair, I think that's fair. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Vargas.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being, so going back into the number, 3,964,000 is not, yes, $4 million. Out of this $3 million, ARPA money give you $3 million for drainage, where those are $3 million are.
that's a separate line. This is just the sidewalk line item for what we've been told was allocated for sidewalks and asked to get sidewalk repairs for. So there are other line items for drainage and other things. That is not what this one is.
So the $3 million that we approved from ARPA money to drain, where is the money?
That I would, wish Craig was here, he could answer that better. I apologize, I didn't come prepared to answer that, I was just trying to answer this.
It's all right,
There is a line item for sewers, I believe, and other things, and that we'll be working on. Others in our department that are working on that diligently on trying to get our sewer system mapped and camera to figure out where the biggest deficiencies are, to figure out how best to spend that money and where to clean and line and things
I
like
think
that.
you could talk a very long time about that. Right, she likes to help us understand that.
So, can I?
Yes,
So in these $4 million we're talking about here, is only for sidewalks,
Yes,
so we don't have to worry about that you guys will use this money or ARPA money to fix up a road or a drain.
this is a piece of our ARPA sidewalk budget. The total budget, the city portion is about $3.8 million. And then the RIDOT, if we realize the full match, which we're hoping to do, it's about 1.16 for a total sidewalk budget, which includes engineering, police details, construction of just shy of $5 million. That's our sidewalk project. So this cap amount is a piece of that total 5 million that relates to what we think we're the upside limit we would want for construction.
Can I do that?
yes,
Thank you. So we were talking about there was some confusion about the ARPA money that the administration was trying to put the hands in the basket. Because we had the money back into our service now.
My understanding is that, although I was not part of the detailed, discussions, is that finance and others have worked out what the allocations are, where it's coming from. And that, I've talked with Kyle Delgado, and said that the money that he thought they had, however it shook out, there's that money still there. The DPW sidewalk money is still there. How that came to be, I don't have the details on, but my understanding is that we can now move forward with the ARPA project as well as the council, part of the sidewalks, or you know, the ARPA funding for council, so that all those projects that you had been working on can now move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, finished? Yes. Okay. Any other, thank you, this has been, when we got you in here, we had a real long discussion about sidewalks, and we really,
Hopefully I answered your question.
well, you did an excellent job. And thank you for all of your, this is not easy. We know that, and we can't do it without you, and so we fully appreciate it. With that said, are there any other questions or comments?
I make a motion, we approve number 3.
Okay, second, all right, motion made by Councilman Taylor, seconded by Councilor Anderbaugh, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, we look forward to getting some of these projects completed.
Get it done.
All right.
Busy year.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor, seconded by Councilor Anderbaugh, all in favor? I'm sorry, reverse that. Motion made by Councilor Anderbaugh, seconded by Councilor Taylor, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Likewise, Lauren. You had something. Have a good night. Talk to you soon.